The poems that you'll hear on these tapes, titled Prairie Tales in Rhyme, are reflections of some of my observations and personal experiences while growing up in the country on the Great Plains. Unfortunately, they're not all true. That doesn't mean they couldn't be, but as far as I know, they're not. If I could borrow a phrase from Mark Twain, I'd say that my memory is so good that I sometimes remember things that never even happened. I guess you could say that most of these stories are a combination of a little bit of truth and a whole lot of imagination. Or maybe they're just things that haven't happened yet. This next poem is a perfect example of that. It's called The Cowboy Preacher. The idea came one day after our minister came over to help us work cattle. The true part is that he did get bucked off, but the actual circumstances were not quite as colorful as they are in this poem. Me and Gene and Buster hired out to the K-Bar-S to help with their spring roundup, 'cause they wanted the best, I guess. They just finished calving. Each cow had a calf of her own, and we needed to work 'em and cull off a few and take 'em to their summer home. We were to drive 'em in off of the stock fields to a trap at the end of the draw and vaccinate and castrate and brand 'em and pair 'em up with their ma. Now there's a little country church down the road from us where some of us fellows attend, and last fall we got a new preacher, kind that you're proud to call friend. He growed up on a wheat farm somewhere up north, and he knowed about tilling the soil. He could run a tractor or combine, even change the oil. And he could plow a pretty straight furrow planting wheat or corn and maize. But he didn't know nothing about cattle, and less about cowboy ways. But he wanted to learn about cowboying, find out firsthand what it means. And he couldn't found no better teachers than me and Buster and Gene. So we told him to come on over, that we'd show him what to do. Why, he might even get an inspiration for another sermon or two. Now, he was riding a little sorrel horse that was sure enough broke to ride, but the horse knew less about cows than the preacher. So we put him riding drag on the drive. Well, we got him corralled, and we built us a fire and was waiting for the irons to get hot. Told the preacher he sure done good, and that helped his ego a lot. When the irons got hot, we went to work. Wondered if he'd stick around. Gene went to roping, Buster was branding. Preacher stayed and helped plank 'em down. Well, after a while, things was getting dull. We was needing a little fun. Buster says to Preacher, "Go get on your horse and go and rope you one. I've been telling folks you're a heck of a hand. Now, don't make me out a liar. Ride into that herd and rope you a calf and drag him up here to the fire." Now, nobody ever thought that Preacher'd ever catch, no matter how often he calved, and none of us bothered to notice that he was tied on, hard and fast. Well, as luck would have it, he caught the first loop. That calf let out a big wail, and the horse spun around, and the calf run behind him, and he got the rope under his tail. He clamped down on that rope, and he started to prance. He's a-hunting some place to go. Calf's a-bellerin', and the cow comes a-chargin', and the preacher's a-hollerin' whoa. They go flying around that big corral, a-bucking, running wild-eyed, dragging that calf behind him with that cow running there by its side. And with that rope crossed his leg, the preacher's tied on. He's got to weather the storm. He's lost both reins and one stirrup, but he's a-hanging on the horn. Well, the rope finally comes loose, and the preacher falls off, and he lands in a pile of manure. And I think he might have uttered an obscenity, but I don't really know for sure, but I thought I heard him mention something suggesting that there might be some canine blood in the maternal side of that horse's pedigree. But now he's facing another dilemma. That cow has gave up the chase, but she's still pretty mad about what he done to her calf, and she's there blowing snot in his face. Now, nobody knows why cowboys are like they are or how their twisted mind works. They'll laugh every time someone else gets bucked off, no matter even if he's hurt. And we was laughing so loud we couldn't hardly talk. It was a hilarious sight. Buster punched Gene. He said, "Man, this fun." and the preacher's a-fightin' for his life. Well, we run out and scare off the cow, and the preacher, he's a-gaspin' for breath. Gene mounts up and catches his horse before he drags the calf plumb to death. The preacher gets up, dusts himself off, then says to Buster, "I suppose this makes me a genuine cowboy," as he scraped the crap off of his clothes. Now that Sunday, his sermon was on the 23rd Psalm, about the shepherd taking care of his sheep, and about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. He said he'd been there last week. Then he said, turn to Romans, the 12th chapter, and he picked up his Bible and read it. "Vengeance is mine, I'll repay," said the Lord. And he looked right at us when he said it. Now, someday, I reckon he'll make a hand. And when he does, he'll be like the rest. He, too, will laugh when some greenhorn bucks off. That's part of the code of the West.